So welcome to our information session and Q&A for this upcoming summer delegation of Honduras, Cuerpo Territorio, Ecofeminism, and Resistance in Honduras. My name is Matthew, and I'm part of the coordination team putting on this delegation, helping to bring it to life. And I will introduce myself a little bit more later, but I wanted to first off just welcome you all to the space. I think we might have a few others joining us. We also have folks from other folks from Witness for Peace, Solidarity Collective here with us, and folks from the School of America's Watch that's also collaborating with us on this delegation. So I think with that, I'd like to pass it off to Allison to get us started. And then we're excited to just like give you all a really solid overview of this delegation and some of the context and background on why we chose to focus on this theme to begin with. And then we'd love to make space for your questions as well. And we also want to get into logistics and give you some more clarity around what our time on the ground may look like and some of the details around actually getting to Honduras and what that will be like. So thanks again. Allison, I'd like to pass it off to you.
Sure, thanks, Matthew. So I'm Allison Lira, and I'm part of the Witness for Peace Honduras team. I've been on the ground here in Honduras for the last a little bit over 2 years. And I'm just really excited to be here with you all. And thank you for your interest in coming out to Honduras on this delegation this summer. I'm going to talk a little bit about the organization and how we ended up in Honduras as an organization and a little bit about the Honduran context. And then we'll get into the specifics about what we're hoping this delegation will be and why we feel like this delegation is important to organize and to have here. So Witness for Peace is an organization that was founded in the 80s, partially as a response to the Contra War in Nicaragua. And the organization was founded to counter US intervention there. And then with time, we kind of ended up spreading out to other country sites. So currently we have a presence in Cuba, opposing the US embargo against Cuba. We have a team in Colombia, which arrived there to oppose Plan Colombia and continues to oppose harmful US policies that militarize communities in Colombia. And then we also have our team in Honduras that engages in popular education work, delegation, speakers tours, does advocacy, and kind of the important piece of our work here on the ground is doing physical protective accompaniment with communities and leaders that are at risk as a result of their struggle against extractivism and militarization and other violations of human rights. Maybe we could pass to the next slide. Yeah, so a little bit about Honduras. We ended up coming to Honduras. Well, we started making trips out to Honduras shortly after the 2009 US-backed military coup in Honduras that deposed then President Manuel Zelaya. And then we decided to establish a permanent presence shortly after the assassination of Berta Cáceres, who was the founder of an indigenous organization defending Lenca rights called COPIN. And have been here kind of ever since, accompanying the social movements that resisted the post-coup narco dictatorship. And And so I've been on the ground during the transition between that, the 10 years or the over 10 years of post-coup narco dictatorship, to the rise of a new government here in Honduras. And Lulu, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that and maybe introduce yourself also.
Hi, folks. Thanks, Allison. Hi, everyone. My name is Lulu Matute, and I am an organizer with School of the Americas Watch. And SOA Watch was founded as a solidarity organization based in the US. And in the late 80s, folks started coming together from college campuses, from a number of different communities in the US to be in solidarity with the people of Central America as they were being impacted by graduates of School of the Americas, of the US Army of School of the Americas, who were then turning around and committing egregious human rights violations in El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, and throughout Latin America. But to put it in the context of Honduras, both in the coup and later we'll speak about the case of Berta Cáceres, graduates of School of the Americas have been connected as intellectual actors and as gunmen in a lot of the cases, again, including the coup. And we at School of the Americas Watch specifically look at US security aid funding and policy that bolsters military personnel from SOA to then turn around in the case of Honduras, and as they were able to do in 2009 and commit a military coup that ousted then President Mel Zelaya, which also led to an over decade-long narco dictatorship under Juan Orlando and the National Party. And if I may, I would like to just share a bit of my entry point to the delegation and Witness for Peace. I met Allison and Matt in Honduras at the end of the Nationalist Party rule, when there was a really important moment of hope and relief, where folks were going out to vote, and went there as witnesses of the voting that was taking place, that then led to President Xiomara Castro coming into office. So it's an exciting time to be able to come back to Honduras to walk with Witness for Peace and communities on the ground in Honduras. And lastly, I wanted to emphasize this important piece, right, going back to, you know, the history of the SOA Watch, the history of Witness for Peace, but all of this has been about solidarity and building relationships, connections, lines of communication across borders. And that's what we're doing, and that's what we're hoping that you all can join us in on this delegation. And we'll get to hear directly from communities in Honduras, and I'm sure we'll get into the details of that. But very excited to participate in the coordination of this space, of this delegation. And I look forward to getting to know folks who are interested in joining us.
Thanks, Lulu. Yeah, just kind of wanted to say a little bit about how during the narco dictatorship, these delegations were really critical in terms of visibilizing the human rights crisis that was happening. And over the last kind of year of a new government, the Libre Party came into power during that election that Lulu was mentioning. And their rise into power, it was largely considered kind of a new era, a new opportunity. And over the last year, we've seen that delegations remain a really important solidarity tool, especially in the context of really heavy US intervention in the country. And so I think as we kind of get into this presentation, and also folks who choose to come onto the delegation, understanding the role of US intervention in the ongoing human rights crisis is going to be important. And, you know, this delegation specifically is looking to focus on and examine and highlight the role of women and LGBTQ peoples in these struggles against and the defense of their communities against extractive projects and trends of militarization that end up displacing communities as well as causing a variety of violent impacts. And so, yeah.
Thank you for that, Lulu and Allison. And I think adding to that, and to further introduce myself, I had the privilege to connect with the work of Witness for Peace and the partners that they accompany on the ground in Honduras back in 2021. And that's also where, as Lulu mentioned, where three of us all connected during the national elections at the end of the narco dictatorship. And then I also had the opportunity to return to Honduras earlier this year in February with the last delegation that was out there with Witness for Peace. And I want to speak a little bit to this theme of cuerpo territorio, ecofeminism, and resistance in Honduras, and also just some of the through line themes of this delegation. One of them being, as Allison mentioned, centering and uplifting specifically the role of women and queer people in struggles to defend territorial sovereignty and bodily autonomy in Honduras, and also the role of artists and art as a powerful means for resistance. And finally, there's a focus on making space for and centering folks from the diaspora, the Honduran and Central American diaspora, given that delegations can be inaccessible to folks that may not have the means or access to resources or time, or haven't seen themselves reflected in these spaces, in these types of solidarity spaces. And so that's also one of the intentions for this delegation. So just a little bit more on the cuerpo territorio theme. From the perspective of cuerpo territorio, struggles to defend rivers and mountains, for example, from hydroelectric, mining, and other extractive projects can't be separated from feminist and queer struggles. And we see that across Honduras, the leadership of women is central in movements to defend territory, and that extractivist projects depend on violence and intimidation toward women and queer people who organize in social movements. And that violence is used to fast track the displacement of communities. For example, the displacement and contamination involved with extractive projects and industry, it disproportionately affects women as they are the ones bearing children. So again, we felt it was really critical that a delegation focus on this ecofeminist angle to strengthen solidarity with women-led and queer organizing amidst a culture where violence toward women and queer people is so normalized. And Berta Cáceres, the case of Berta Cáceres and her murder in 2016 was a femicide. And she was herself an Indigenous land defender. And Lulu mentioned the connection with the School of Americas and how the people that her assassins were trained by the US. They had been through US training. Yeah, I wanted to also uplift this quote from the Copin Declaration of the Declaration of the Women of Copin. We will never forget the words of our sister Berta Cáceres, that the struggle for emancipation begins in the home, and that it is anti-patriarchal, and we will struggle incessantly to honor her memory by liberating our territories in the face of extractivist violence. And then I had the privilege in March to be, in Tegucigalpa, in the capital, for International Women's Day. And it was really, really incredible to see thousands of women, queer people, trans people in the streets amidst such a challenging environment, and demanding recognition, demanding rights from this administration. And I just want to share this video of folks chanting in Berta's name. just to give folks an idea of how these movements are coming together. And right now is a special time given Xiomara Castro being in power, though she's facing a lot of threats to her administration and a lot of foreign intervention. So anyways, I think with that sort of baseline, I'd like to pass it off to Lulu to speak a little bit more on feminist and queer struggles and the role of transnational solidarity.
Thank you, Matt. And just to share the points on the screen here, some figures that Matthew pulled together. We have the first point here, 405 LGBTQ people have been reported killed in the country since 2009, so since the coup. And it's according to an organization here in Honduras. And the case of Vicky Hernandez is an important case because this happens during the night of the military coup in 2009. And Vicky Hernandez was a trans woman who was suspected of violating an imposed curfew because of the military coup, because of militarism taking over the country at that moment. And Vicky was chased and murdered by state forces. And this case went up to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. And just last year, the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights came back and found that the state and military forces were indeed responsible and created all of the conditions for this violence against Vicky, against LGBT community, queer women, queer community, and women more generally to exist there after the coup as well. So the case of Vicky Hernandez is really a moment that Hondurans have been living since the coup, since the 12 years after the coup. So what's important about this case is also the solidarity piece, that community from the US was able to come together with Comunidad en Catrachas in Honduras in particular to bring light to bring awareness about this case and to take it on the internet, talk about it, to be able to dissect the role of militarism and police forces during that night of the coup. So this, again, is the emphasis of how critical the transnational solidarity work is to bring justice to cases of violence against queer bodies, against communities. And if you can please move to the next slide. And another piece I did wanted to share, and again, a big part of the intention behind this delegation is centering art, right? Art is movement building as a space for solidarity. And building on the tradition of the organization I have the honor of being with, of walking with. Some of the images that you see on the screen on the left-hand side are from a convening we had at the US-Mexico border. Matt was part of that. And it was a moment where folks from the neighboring border communities in Nogales, in Arizona, in California, folks of the diaspora, artists, poets, organizers were able to come together and have an exchange. So there is talking policy, and that's a really important piece, right? The analysis, the academic setting as well. And then there's the community building piece, the movement as resistance, visual art as resistance. So this was a moment of exchange and something that we want to bring on this delegation as well, to center art as a way of communication, to center movement and the visual piece, to share that as a way of memory making, of building these ties across borders, and then of leaving this memory, whether it's visual, whether it's music, but we want to uplift that as well. And I believe you have a video from your last visit in Tegucigalpa, Matt, if you want to introduce that.
Yeah, this is a colectivo called of a hip hop group called Hip Hop Femenino El Salvador. So they actually came out to Honduras on that same day, International Women's Day, and there was like a hip hop event. They had lots of feminist performers there, and this was one of the incredible acts.
Dice, mano arriba. Tu derecho a decidir, nadie lo puede prohibir si tu vida es primero. Aborto legal, aborto para no morir, aborto para resistir, sin culpas ni miedo, grita. Aborto legal, es tu derecho a decidir, no te lo pueden prohibir si tu vida es primero. Aborto legal, aborto para morir, aborto para decidir, sin culpas ni miedo, grita. Aborto legal.
Yeah, so sharing this in the context of the importance of, well, I've had discussions with Lulu about how, for example, in nearby Guatemala, there's this thriving hip hop and rap and also dance based movement. And that also weaves into resistance and uplifting, remembrance of the traumas of the past and ongoing, like displacement of communities and massacres, etc. And that is also there's a budding movement of art and resistance art and hip hop in Honduras, and it seems to be centered in Tegucigalpa. And so even though this group in particular is coming from El Salvador, they were there in collaboration with also Honduran artists. Lulu?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And again, the emphasis here being that art is resistance. It's a form of resistance and a powerful tool for exchange. It's a powerful tool to be able to engage, with the themes, with the struggles that are local. And just like the compañeras are coming from El Salvador with a very clear lens on their reality, they're able to exchange that in verso, con ritmo, with community in Honduras as well. And to see that flourishing in Tegucigalpa, to see it flourishing in San Pedro Sula as well, it's really beautiful to witness. And I just wanted to acknowledge that when this Zoom kicked off, you were playing Rebecca Lane, right? And Rebecca Lane, coming from Guatemala, was really really blossomed from the Hijos movement. And Hijos was very much about memory, resistance, justice, and looking back at genocide against Comunidad in Guatemala. And that being the entry point of organizing, and then art being the vehicle that allowed them to mobilize and create more awareness about the issues in a creative way. And again, to bring a point, una semillita from Berta Cáceres and Copín, one of the things Berta wrote about, and you can see it in videos as well. She talks about the necessity for joy to exist in resistance and organizing. And that is an active, that's active labor. It's communal labor to create joy, to create collectively, and music and art is a part of that movement. So it is something we want to uplift, and we as witnesses, we as community and solidarity are hoping to be able to go to Honduras and support that, and to also be in exchange with it. Continuamos.
Go ahead, Allison.
Yeah, so just a bit about what we're kind of hoping to do on the delegation. As we've been kind of mentioning, the post-coup period ushered in a new period in Honduras, in which we saw the increased militarization of the country and forces used to repress communities that were in resistance to the mass concessioning of the country's natural resources. And in that kind of like increment of violence, women and queer people were some of the most deeply impacted. And COPIN, the Council of Popular and Indigenous Organizations in Honduras, and OFRENE, which is the Fraternal Black Organization of Honduras, are have been some of the leaders on understanding the interconnections between the experience of women and queer peoples in the country and these territorial struggles, these defenses of their communities and their natural resources. And so the hope is that we could and we will go visit Gopin and Ofrene and their communities, so that they can talk about how they bridge or visualize or recognize the role of marginalized folks in these struggles, and that will tie into kind of the artistry that is happening in the cities, the student movements that are happening in the cities in kind of solidarity with these territorial struggles in the rural areas. The itinerary is still very much up for, is still kind of in flux. It very much depends on what's happening in the country and where the needs are and where the availabilities are. But that's kind of like the broad strokes of what we're hoping to do on the delegation is visit communities, rural communities in struggle, to understand the role of women and queer people in those struggles, and to also go into the cities and as Matthew mentioned, to take a look at this kind of budding art movement that's happening, and to take a look at what's happening with the students and the more urban kind of feminist movement that's happening there. I'll say that art is definitely one of the things that was repressed in the post-coup kind of narco dictatorship. Oftentimes in the street protests, you'll see music and art and all of that was kind of pushed away during the post-coup period. And so it's been interesting because we're a year into a new government. The Inter-American Human Rights Commission was just here, and they were able to confirm that violence against human rights defenders, violence against women, violence against Indigenous people, violence against queer people is the same, if not higher, than it was during the Juan Orlando years. And so there's still a long road to go. You know, the social movements, I feel like, have more space to breathe under this new government, but the root kind of issues remain. And it's interesting to see how the social movements and are responding to kind of this new moment in time in the country. And so that's what we'll be taking a look at.
Thank you, Allison. Maybe we can continue and just get into some of these logistics, and then I'd love to do Q&A. And actually, we have a small enough group, we could maybe have everyone go around and introduce themselves. And then if they have any comments or Q&A or questions, then that would be great. So Allison, do you mind continuing on with some logistics?
Yeah, so just some basic logistics. The idea is that we would be flying into Comayagua, which is the airport closest to the capital, Tegucigalpa, on the 23rd of June. And then we would be flying out of San Pedro Sula, which is, we'd be going downwards into or upwards into the North Coast, and flying out of the airport in the second largest city in the country, San Pedro Sula, on the 2nd of July. And for folks who are interested in applying to the delegation, there would be a pre-departure form that people would be asked to fill out. Just a note, in terms of delegates are kind of expected to book their own flights and send us over the information. And in the past, some folks have found that it's cheaper to fly into another airport in Honduras. We can accommodate that. It's just something to keep in mind is that it's going to add travel time. So for example, if you find that it's cheaper to get a round trip flight in and out of San Pedro Sula, And we can accommodate that, but San Pedro Sula de Tegucigalpa is about 4 hours, a 4-hour drive. So that's just something to keep in mind. And vice versa, if it's cheaper to get a round trip flight to Comayagua, for example. But the recommendation is flying into Comayagua on the 23rd of June, flying out of San Pedro Sula on July 2nd. And we can make some accommodations. Just let us know what the deal is ahead of time. So the delegation costs, to cover kind of like everything, the cost is 1,500 plus airfare, but we do have a sliding scale pricing for folks who can't afford the 1,500, and the sliding scale is 900 to 1,500, and if you're interested in applying for sliding scale, there's an application on our website, which you fill out and send to us. And then we'll see what's possible. And on top of that, Witness does support fundraising efforts. So if you're interested in fundraising for your trip to Honduras, we're super open and happy to collaborate on that and to help with fundraising. But, you know, we encourage everyone to put in a delegation application, being honest about what they can pay, and then, you know, we can talk it through about what's possible. And delegation payments are on the 10th or due on the 10th of June 2023. And for more information on all of this, you can find it on our website. There's a part of the website talking specifically about this delegation with all of this information. And you can also send us an email or if you have any questions after this. Mm-hmm.
I could just briefly add here that, you know, our goal is to make this delegation as accessible as possible to folks. We're definitely, I think, again, we encourage you, if you're unsure about the funding piece, to still apply and just share with us where you're at. And in the section of the application where it's like the sliding scale option, there's a section where you can actually, it expands and you can share about that. And the sooner that we have a group together, which we're hoping we'll have at least 10 delegates, the easier it will be for us to fundraise, either for each of you individually and in support you all in having your own like individual fundraising campaigns, or even as a group to pitch, you know, for donors to, you know, essentially donate to support this delegation, because then we can highlight, you know, the individuals on the delegation and the work that you all do and the contributions that you have to bring to this work. And we also, you know, another option and possibility for us is to plan fundraising events, and we have that over the next month. We're hoping to have at least one fundraising event, virtually and in person. So we're definitely trying to make this accessible and bring in, you know, funds from outside sources as well. And we encourage you to apply. Back to you, Allison.
I was on mute. Just some points on COVID. COVID is still around, although everyone or most people in Honduras have had the opportunity or have access to the getting vaccinated, and there are boosters, but it still kind of does circulate. And so to keep the delegation safe and to keep our partners safe, we do kind of have some COVID protocols. Although the government of Honduras does not require that you be fully vaccinated, that we do. So we ask that all delegates are fully vaccinated and that they bring a copy of their vaccination with them on the delegation. Yeah, And then maybe next slide. And if you cannot participate in the delegation because you get COVID in the US before travel, we will refund your delegation fee except for the deposit, which goes towards the cost of plans being made on delegation size. I think, Evan, what's the deposit, like 200?
Yeah, I think it ranges between like 250 and 300, depending on the cost of the delegation.
And then if you get COVID in country, we will accommodate that, make sure that you're isolated, and if necessary, make sure that you are visited by a doctor to make sure that you're okay. So those are just a few points on our COVID protocol. Based on past experiences with people getting COVID on delegations. Many questions?
I think it would be great. Yeah, if folks have questions, and also, do you think we have time for folks to introduce themselves, or should we just do questions, Allison?
I think we have time. Maybe we can, if folks can introduce themselves and ask whatever questions that they have, just go around, and then at the end we can answer all of them.
That sounds good.
Cool.
Maybe just give us a really brief introduction on what brings you into the space with us today, and your interest in delegation, and then and if you want to share any identifying, like your name, and if sharing pronouns feels important to you, please feel free to share them. Maybe we can start with, I see Eva or Eva, or whoever wants to start. I don't need to put you on the spot. Go for it.
I'm on the spot now. Sorry, my dogs are barking. I hope they're not too loud. Well, yeah, full disclosure, I am actually working for a different organization in Honduras, so I will not be able to participate with you guys this this time around. But I'm working with bilingual education for Central America. So I'm located in San Pedro Sula, but I'm working in Cofradia, which is about 20 minutes out. Ultimately with the vision and goal of providing high quality bilingual education for an accessible cost. And yeah, really, I just wanted to join to hear more about like movements that are happening in Honduras. I obviously, as a gringa, feel a little removed from them, but want to show my support for the community in which I live. So that's why I'm here. So thank you guys, first of all, so much for the work that you are doing. And I do hope to stay connected and interact with you and learn more about any ways that I could, support. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you so much, Eva. Nice to meet you. Amoke, I hope I said that correctly.
That was great. Hi, I'm Amoke Kubat. Well, I'm looking at this, and I'm an artist, retired teacher, and always interested in connecting and widening my artistic practice in communities. So I've always been interested in Latin and Central America, and other places where you have African diasporic people. Very interested in the roles of women and artists here. I love to travel. My concern is I'm old. I feel like I'm going to be the oldest person. I'm 72. I have a walker. If the land is pretty flat, I'm good. If it's really rocky and pebbly and shifts like sand, I won't be able to do it. So what's the terrain like?
I don't think the terrain for this delegation will be too trying. On the North Coast, we will visit beachside communities, but I don't think there'll be a ton of walking on the sand. There might even be option to not go on the sand at all. Yeah, I think physically, I mean, in terms of a lot of physical kind of exertion, getting to communities and meetings and stuff, I don't expect that it'll be one of the more physically taxing ones.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Whoever wants to go next can unmute themselves. Blaine, you want to share with us? Oh, you're in the chat. I'll share what they said in the chat. Says my name is Blaine. My headphones are dying, so I don't think I'll be able to sound off. Currently in Roatan, Honduras. I'm a birth worker and maternal health NGO founder. I'm assuming that meant to say NGO. It's great to meet you. Thank you for joining us. Do you have any questions? When are we notified about acceptance and can make deposit payment? I will say on the acceptance piece, I'm supposed to have sent you an email since you applied, just confirming that we received your application and letting you know those things, but I yet to do that. So I think our application deadline is the end of May at this point. So that will definitely be like, you'll know for sure by then. But Allison, did you want to, or Evan, did you want to jump in on this?
No, just that, yeah, you should be notified of acceptance soon, and then can make deposit payments whenever you'd like after that. Well, whenever you'd like before the deadline.
By the end of the month, roughly, yes. Deadline for payments, for just like paying for your part of the delegation payment, whatever we end up coming, whatever ends up coming out to after sliding scale and whatnot, that would be June 10th, yes. But deposit, once we notify you of your acceptance, like whenever you can make a deposit, I'm like, I wish I had we don't have the clear date for when the deposit's due right now. Because, so I'm gonna say basically like June 5th is deposit, June 10th payment. And then the end of the month is our application deadline. So we should have our group pretty much solidified by then. But I'll send you an email to confirm. And then who else? Eva went. Someone named Blaine was with us, but I think they had to jump off. And then Matthew.
Yes, hello everyone, is Matthew. As well as Eva, I work with bilingual education for Central America and am currently based in Cofradía, Honduras, about 45 minutes south of San Pedro Sula. I wanted to join today to learn a little bit more about the wonderful work that you guys are doing, being based here in Honduras. I definitely think for this year's delegation and schedule, it's not possible to apply. However, I do want to stay connected, in the loop of all of the work that you guys are doing, and hope for maybe in a future, being full-time located here in Honduras. So thank you to all of you.
Great. Thank you all for coming. Any other questions or comments? And we have about, I guess, 10 minutes to the top of the hour. I have a quick snippet of a segment of a video I could show. Since it seems like there's interest here of Miriam Miranda speaking, but I could share that as a way to close us out. But is there any other things that folks wanted to bring up? Lulu, Evan, Allison.
No, just thanks everybody for your interest and for taking this hour today to be here and to learn more about the delegation.
Yeah, likewise.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. I didn't introduce myself. I'm Evan. He, him pronouns, based here in Bogota, Colombia. I'm the digital organizer here for Witness for Peace, Solidarity Collective. Yeah, thanks so much for your interest. And if you know folks who were interested and couldn't make it, we'll be sending this out to folks, and please let them know that they can email us if they have any questions. We're always available to answer those. And yeah, we're just really excited about this delegation. I think it's going to be really great, and hoping to have a really good group together. So yeah, thanks.
Great. Looking at some comments. Thank you for sharing your contacts. I'm going to share my screen again. Where did that share button go? Here we go. And just share a quick clip for you all as a way of kind of closing us out. Can folks hear and see?
Luego diwa Casey onda ni again the way wamua. Ka weye porque ni hamba samino lawa Casey garino gai. Como ka hamuga gai funa. Mama gube mua lu to muna lu.
And I think you might have to reshare your screen and make it for video.
Okay, let me try again. Optimize for video.
Yeah, optimize for video.
What was it? Was it all choppy?
Yeah, at least for me. I don't know this.
Okay, yeah, let's try again. Try one more time. How about now?
Looks great. Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Luego diwa Casey onda ni again the way wamua. Ka weye porque ni hamba samino lawa Casey garino gai. Como ka hamuga gai funa. Mama gube mua lu to muna lu wadugu hamuga wachari. Megeti wamua lu vidi alo acho haba wewe tu la dugu haba garau. Megeti wamua lu tadugu haba guia. Megeti wamua lu vidi hamuga aduga wadaga munu hamu hon wani chigu hon wani. Megeti wamua mege wamuti beya lu wocha hamuga luge wadei wegi ni wongu. Megeti wamua lu sunkatele hamuga lu ayuandu keisi garina wu. Le wayu keisi garina wu mosu frangu la le won lige wagenda gu bali wamua. Mamargien lu wabunu abamuna dale walo hamuna muwa lu giri wabunu abamuna wibuga ya ubu akila haburi ita luba hamuga wadai lu kaya hamuga lu mua lu jagta Ubugu lu hamuga wadig ni les lu kate lu le wawi ma du kaisi gaina. Lieti lebu na bay suwa gaina gunei le wadig bay kaisi onta uni.
So that was Miriam Miranda, the coordinator of OFANE, the Black Fraternal Organization of Honduras. And I wanted to just share that clip to hear directly from her on the centrality of land in their struggle, and how their land is so connected to their identity and culture as a people, and it connects to all aspects of their lives. And so if they're displaced from their land by extractivists, projects, that's an attack on their identity as a people and their way of life. And I think it also, for me, when I see this connection being made by Miriam, I think of the Cuerpo Territorio, that connection and that approach and understanding. But it's more in like from a community perspective, that like land and community are so connected. And Miriam Miranda is also an Afro-Indigenous woman land defender who is a close friend and comrade of Berta Cáceres. So this was a documentary from organization called Mutual Aid Media, called La Lucha Sigue, and it's free. You can stream it on Vimeo if anyone's interested. But just wanted to share that to help ground us and close us out. Did anyone else have anything else to add? And then, yeah. I think another one last point, Lulu, something you mentioned to me yesterday was how Berta was very intentionally inclusive of the queer community, and Copin historically has been. Could you speak more to that?
Yeah, sure thing. Just very briefly, my organizing, I'm currently in Chicago. I'm from Chicago. I live in California. And my organizing happens primarily at the US-Mexico border with Central American community. And I came down to a delegation where Honduran land defenders were coming up from Central America, from Nicaragua as well, Salvador. And there I connected with a member of Copin who was very close to Berta, and they at the border convening shared more about Berta's work and Copin's work with the queer community. So centering that and uplifting that in a country where patriarchal violence, machismo, is very common. Berta really, she walked the talk and she was serious about it, but was very much inclusive of comunidad. When we're talking about indigenidad, Afro-Indigenous community with Indigenous communities from the North Coast, La Parte Sur de Honduras, she really had this intersectional lens to bring in community together, to have a greater analysis, to counter violence, extractive economies coming in, extractive interests coming in, as well as the horizontal violence that is true, reigns true in Honduras, right? And a lot of that is the patriarchal violence. So with that, Berta, Copin, Miriam Miranda, as women organizing, as leaders of these movements, have had a very clear lens that is inclusive of queer community, that is nonviolent, and they have been able to articulate that in their work and their commitments. And meeting Gaspar at the border in Honduras, and hearing these testimonials from community who work directly with both Miriam and Berta, makes that clear. And a lot of the organizers who we're connected to now, who we're going to hear from, continue that work, continue that commitment. And, it's an honor for us to be able to connect with them and uplift that message.
Thank you, Lulu, for sharing that context. And also to mention that Ofane also has a strong emphasis on centering queer communities as well. They have a vibrant queer youth movement as part of their organizing that regularly shows up to actions in solidarity with land defenders around the country. So yeah, we're really looking forward to meeting some of you, and thank you all for coming out. Thank you, Lulu, Allison, Evan, for your support and pulling this together, and Allison for all your work on the ground in Honduras as well. And I think with that, we're going to go ahead and close up. So I will just cue up a song so that we can all leave in unison to the rhythm.